Oh, Miss Elliot. Good morning.
Good morning, Mrs. Rook.
Well, Miss Elliot, we weren't expecting you.
But I said yesterday that I was coming this morning, Mrs. Rook.
I know you did. I know you did. Look, Ma, Miss Elliot has come after all.
Good morning. I don't understand what Mrs. Rook means. I said yesterday that I was coming, so of course I have come.
And I'm very grateful. We really weren't expecting you.
But why not?
Oh, we know all about the concert last night, Miss Elliot.
Oh, I was afraid you would. There can't be very much left for me to tell you.
Oh, I expect there is.
Well, I enjoyed myself very much. Although some people were dissatisfied with the singing.
But not with other things?
Not at all. The orchestra really played quite well, I thought.
Oh, the orchestra, we don't want to hear about that. We want to know who was there.
Oh, well, everybody, I suppose. I saw Miss Atkinson there, I think.
And the little Durrans, with their mouths open to catch the music, like unfledged sparrows waiting to be fed. They never miss a concert.
Well, I didn't see them myself, but Mr. Elliot said he saw them.
Did he now?
Oh, you saw enough for your own amusement, I dare say.
Why, of course you did, Ma'am.
You didn't have to tell me you had a pleasant evening. I could see it in your eye.
Oh, yes.
I can see how you spent your time. Between the songs, there was conversation. There was always something agreeable to listen to.
You could see all that in my eye.
My dear, I can tell that last night you were the person you find the most agreeable in the world. The person who interests you more at the moment than all the rest of the world put together.
Oh, this is no place for me, I can see. Excuse me.
I really do appreciate your kindness in coming here this morning, Anne. You must have so many much more pleasant demands on your time.
But how did you know?
Ah. Tell me, is Mr. Elliot aware that you know me? I mean, does he know that I'm in Bath?
Mr. Elliot? Do you know Mr. Elliot?
Well, I used to know him quite well, but it's a long time since we last met.
You never told me. If you had, I would have talked to him about you.
Well, to tell you the truth, that's exactly what I want you to do. Talk to him about me. He can be very useful to me, you see. And of course, if you ask him anything, it is done.
Oh, I am only his cousin, you know. I have no great influence or claim over him.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I've been a little premature, I see. I should have waited for official information. But tell me, as an old friend, when may I speak? Next week?
No, not next week, nor the week after. I am not going to marry Mr. Elliot. I should really rather like to know why you imagine I am.
Well, all men are refused until they offer, of course.
But Mr. Elliot has never even dreamed of offering. And if he ever does, I certainly shan't accept him, I assure you.
No?
No. It was not Mr. Elliot whose presence gave me so much. I simply can't understand whatever gave you such an idea.
Well, it was Nurse Rook. She got it all from Mrs. Wallace, who seemed a very good authority.
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but Mrs. Wallace is quite wrong.
Well...
Of course, I shall still be very happy to help you in any way I can with Mr. Elliot. You said you've known him a long time.
Yes, I have.
Since before he was married?
Yes.
Well, do tell me what he was like then. Was he anything like he is now?
Well, I haven't seen him for 3 years. I'm very sorry. I don't know what to do. I don't want to seem officious or mischief-making.
You know I would never think that.
I think you should know what Mr. Elliot is really like.
What?
He's a man without heart or conscience. He thinks of no one but himself. He has no feelings for other people whatever. Forgive me. Mr. Elliot was the intimate friend of my dear husband. He trusted and loved him and thought him as good as himself.
Yes?
Oh, yes. Mr. Elliot was poor in those days, but he always had a home with us when he wanted it.
That Must be about the time that he met my father and Elizabeth in London. He did something unworthy then. I don't know what it was, but he slighted my father at a time when my father was prepared to be perfectly kind to him.
Oh, he wanted to be rich, to marry money, not wait to inherit it. He thought your father wanted him to marry Elizabeth, but that wouldn't give him his freedom.
So he married... His wife was a very low woman, they say.
Yes, but money was all he was after. Her father was a grazier, her grandfather a butcher, and he didn't mind. All he cared about was her fortune. As to the honor of his family, well, he used to say that if baronetcies were for sale, anyone could have his for £50. Arms, motto, name and livery included. I can give you full proof. You see that inlaid box on the desk there? Would you give it to me?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. This is the letter Mr. Elliot wrote to my poor husband before we were married. Here it is. You'd better read it yourself.
Dear Smith, your kindness almost overpowers me. I wish nature had made such hearts as yours more common. At present, believe me, I have no need of your services, being in cash again.
Oh, my husband lent him so much.
Give me joy. I have got rid of Sir Walter and Miss Elliot. They have gone back to Kellynch and almost made me swear to visit them this summer. This is quite true. We expected him, but he never came.
Go on, Anne.
But my first visit to Kellynch will be with a surveyor to tell me how I can bring it under the hammer to the best advantage. Oh, it's too much.
There's more.
The baronet is even worse than last year. I wish I had any name but Elliot. I am sick of it.
I thought you should see it. It shows you the man.
Yes. Thank you. This proves that everything you've said is true. Except, why does he want to know us now?
Oh, he really does want to marry you, it seems. He's quite sincere about it.
How do you know all this? You haven't seen him for 3 years, you said.
No, but Colonel Wallis sees him every day, and Mr. Elliot tells him everything. And Colonel Wallis tells Mrs. Wallis.
Mrs. Rook. I see.
There's another thing, too.
Well, what is it?
Mrs. Clay, your sister's friend.
Mrs. Clay? Well, what has she to do with it?
I'm told she has every intention of marrying your father if she can.
Well, yes. I think that is probably true.
Your sister may not realize it, but other people do. And Mr. Elliot is older now than he was when he wrote this. He has the greatest respect for titles and connections these days. He has all the money he wants already.
Is this true?
Oh, yes. He's set his heart on being Sir William now. And of course, if your father marries again, well, Mr. Elliot may have to remain Mr. for the rest of his life.
I see.
Mrs. Wallis has an amusing idea. That it's to be put into your marriage articles with Mr. Elliot that your father is never to marry Mrs. Clay.
I don't find that very funny.
Well, as Mrs. Rook says, it wouldn't stop him marrying someone else, would it?
What a very silly woman Mrs. Wallis must be.
Well,
I'm very glad you told me all this. I shall know exactly how to behave to Mr. Elliot in future.
I thought you should know.
But you still haven't told me how I could help you.
Oh, it's very simple. Once Mr. Elliot was married, he was rich. And he led my husband into expenses far beyond his means.
I see.
Fortunately, he died before he knew the whole story. He made Mr. Elliot his executor.
And what has he done?
Nothing. That's the trouble. He's refused to act. Look, here's one of his letters. refuses to help me at all, you see. That's his notion of gratitude.
Then why did you praise him to me?
What else could I do? I thought it was all arranged. I couldn't tell you the truth if you were engaged to him.
I think you should have done.
He didn't love his first wife. I thought he did love you. And if you loved him, well, I thought you might do better.
Well, I hope I shall.
Ah. And you still haven't told me why I was wrong. Who is he, Anne?
Ask Mrs. Rook.